Hello and welcome to this chapter 19 video lecture. Today we're going to be talking about e-marketing strategy. The takeaways for this lecture is to have an understanding of what the 4 P's of marketing are and how they've been influenced by the internet. Also look at developing a marketing plan and the steps needed to do that. And then lastly, how e-marketing fits in the overall mix of the big marketing picture, if you will. So if you look at the different types of markets that we have business to business, business to consumer, consumer to business, and consumer to consumer. A lot of what takes place now is business to business, but we're also seeing lots of business to consumer type of transactions that's taking place. And so this is where the marketing folks are getting engaged and wanting to see how well they can influence that person or whoever they're targeting in order to buy a product or service from them. Here we have the 4 P's of marketing. These are the old type of P's, if you will. So you had products and services, price, placement or distribution, and then promotion. And so think about how the internet has influenced or changed how we now market products and services. How do we do the price? I know with pricing on the internet, we can track which computer you're coming from. If you look at our item again, we can raise the price on that. And so it gives you a sense of, well, I better buy this now or the price is going to keep going up. We now have access to placement of our promotional materials, but also our product just about anywhere. If we have a digital product, then we can actually ship that anywhere in real time, which we couldn't do before. And then that also influences how we promote things. If we have people that are all over the internet at different times of the day, is there a better time of day that we can promote things? How do we go about promoting those? Is it going to be seen on a desktop computer, a phone, or a tablet, or some other kind of device? And so those are all the different decisions that go into marketing on the internet now. But we have some new P's, if you will, and these represent the new things that we need to consider. One is data. The other is stories. Think about the stories as blogs or information that people are telling about your product or service. We have the actual product or service. Then we have the interactions between the business and the consumer. And then we have the connections that are being made. These are all the things that we've discussed in the previous chapters. There are also some different things to think about. And this is put forth by other people that are doing marketing research. But, these are different P's, if you will. There's personalization. Now we can, if we're doing some kind of digital product, then we can personalize that to the consumer. Also with the internet, we can also use our resources in a way such that it seems like the consumer is ordering something specifically for them, when in fact there's a lot of different consumers that are ordering the same exact item, which allows us to produce it through economies of scale and get the price down and then deliver that to the user so that it seems like they're getting something very highly personalized. There's also participation, there's peer-to-peer communities, and there's predictive modeling. Again, the predictive modeling is with the data analytics. The peer-to-peer communities wouldn't exist without the internet. And so now we have different communities, people that are in groups, in networks that relate to each other. You can be in multiple groups or multiple networks, and so then that allows those people in those networks to be influencers in those networks. And it's the influencers that, as a marketing person, you're after. You want to influence those so they can then influence other people. And so if you can convince them to buy your product or service, then they'll help you convince others in their network to buy the product or service, or at least have good things to say about it. So probably the most significant thing now is with the internet, we can do customer-centric marketing. Everything is geared toward that customer. So the marketing mix then for a customer-centric perspective is that we're looking at products and services, and so we're designing those products and services specifically for the customer's needs. They can be tweaked slightly based on whatever needs they have, and then we can also adjust our prices. We can have different prices for different types of customers, and so we can focus on the value of the product and the services offered and try and deliver something that the customer is willing to pay that amount for, or we can get feedback at a much faster rate in order to adjust our prices. And if we have a product that's becoming obsolete, we can then use that internet again to try and move that product as quickly as possible before it becomes obsolete and before we have to give it away more or less and lose all of our revenue from that product. Then in terms of placement, keep in mind this is also distribution. That is how do we go about having customers find us? And so that's the reason why we spend so much time on search engine optimization and a little web development. So the customers are going to find us by doing their own searches. We're going to try and tie into the keywords that they're using when they're doing their searches so they can find us. So we want to help them find us. And then in terms of promotion, it's just, the amount of people using the internet, and the amount of time that's spent online is a large amount, and we need to find ways that we can get customers to our site. And one way, again, is going back and being the influencer of the influencer in those networks. But just as in the old ways of marketing, when you were relying on traffic, if you will, you wanted to locate your store where there was a high amount of traffic, and that's why malls did so well for a while. And so with the internet, we've got large and larger amounts of traffic that are getting on the internet, but somehow we've got to figure out a way for them to find us. Again, we go back to that search engine and trying to put in those keywords so they can find us. We also want to make use of other means that people might find us if they're related to certain groups, and so we may want to put out information that it might be in a Facebook group. We might have our own Facebook group that would influence people when they go back to their other networks, and they may comment on that, or even just blogs that people are following and looking for certain keywords and terms and things. And so that'll help us with our promotion as well. So continuing on, here are the steps to a marketing plan. They're fairly generic, but we can go through them, and you can try and think if you can write these down without looking at these. So one is you need to know what it is that you do and why. You need to know your market, right? So then you're going to perform some kind of strategic analysis. Where do you want to be in 5 years? How are you going to get there in terms of whatever you're selling? So then you're going to set your objectives. These are things that are measurable. And then you want to say, okay, are they achievable? Is it realistic or not? Then you want to say, okay, we're going to generate some other tactics for achieving those objectives. How do I Let's say I set an objective to increase sales by 10%. So what are some strategies for increasing sales by 10%? And I need to measure those and see how well I'm doing. Once I've thought through my strategies and said, yes, this is the way I want to go, then you're going to implement them. Then you always need to follow up, if you will, that is to track and analyze those strategies, see if you're performing as expected. Do you may need to make any adjustments in either your tactics, or maybe you've set your goal too low and you've achieved it already, and now you're far exceeding that, and then you need to set a higher goal. And so you want to try and optimize your tactics here, and so to help you meet your goals. So as you look at those steps, the second step was to perform a strategic analysis. This is a strategic analysis of the industry. So one thing that you can use from the business area is something called Porter's 5 forces model. And here it looks at the forces within an industry, within your competition. And so what we're looking at is, bargaining power of suppliers, threats to new entrants, bargaining power of customers, competitors and rivalry, and substitute products or services. So you look at these different things within your industry, and you ask yourself, if this is a high threat, then that means that you're not going to be able to charge a high price. That is, the economic value of whatever you're trying to sell is going to be lower than what you normally would get because of these threats. So let me explain. So bargaining power of customer means that, do our customers have alternative places to go to buy a similar product? And the answer would be, with the internet, depends on what you're selling. But if they do, then they would be considered to have high bargaining power. Therefore, you couldn't charge an extraordinary high price for whatever you're selling. You'd have to set it so you're competing with your competitors. Now, what about barriers to entry and threats of new entrants? Again, is it easy for somebody else to come into this industry and compete with you? Or does it take a whole lot of capital and time in order to get everything set up and get customers? And so then there's a high barrier to entry, but the threat would be low. So then you could charge more. Same thing with bargaining power suppliers. Could you go and get whatever you need in terms of raw materials from somebody else? If the answer is yes, then the bargaining power of suppliers is low and you could charge more based on just looking at that example. But if you could only get your supplies of whatever you're producing from one or two suppliers, then their bargaining power is high and you would have less of a chance to charge a higher rate. Then you would also look at substitute products or services. If it's easy for somebody to get a similar product or service somewhere else, then that threat is high and you wouldn't be able to charge as much. Then you'd also look at the competitors within your industry and the rivalry. Is it highly competitive? Again, that's going to drive prices down for everybody. If it's not very competitive, then you can maybe charge more. So this is the sort of things you would do when you're doing your strategic analysis. You could also do a SWOT analysis, and the SWOT analysis deals with strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Notice that for strengths and weaknesses, these are internal to the organization, and then opportunities and threats are external. What you want to do then is maximize your strengths and opportunities, because those are helpful things, and you want to minimize the harmful things, which are your weaknesses and any threats that you perceive. So again, this helps you with your strategic analysis. So as you get ready to implement your marketing plan, if we're doing it over the internet, you're going to use some kind of electronic marketing. So electronic marketing or e-marketing is just marketing using the internet. And when you're using e-marketing, keep in mind that it should be part of your overall marketing strategy and not just seen as a separate marketing strategy. And so when you look at the overall or everything in total, that's a holistic strategy. And so you want to keep that in mind and think about how much you're going to budget for your e-marketing, regular marketing, and so on. Right? So you need to be flexible with how you go about doing things. Maybe you're finding that you're more profitable in the non-e-marketing area, then you want to put some of your more of your budget money towards that area. But if you think e-marketing is helping you more, maybe you want to shift some of those resources over into the e-marketing area so that you could help increase your revenue that way. So as we talk about different tactics and what you can expect from them, so here are some examples. So a tactic is going to help you achieve your objectives. Right? And the objectives, if you meet all your objectives, should help you achieve your goal. So in terms of what we've been doing, if you did an email marketing campaign, the outcome might be more customer retention. If you did online advertising, is that going to increase your branding and acquisition, especially the awareness here? We've talked about affiliate marketing, so that's going to help your sales and branding as well. We've talked about SEO, or search engine optimization. That's going to help you acquire customers because they're going to be able to find you now based on the keywords they're looking for. We can do a pay-per-click, again, acquisition, especially if we do a click-through rate, how many people actually came to our website. We can use social media. Again, that can be used to help us with branding and participation. The viral marketing, the word of mouth marketing, acquisition and branding. Online reputation management, again, thinking about our customer retention, branding and participation. And then just our web public relations, again, acquisition and branding. These are all things that might help us with our objectives, which would then help us achieve our goals. And so you just don't want to look at, the outcomes of the number of users. You want to use some other business intelligence tools that are going to help you gather data and help you analyze the data. So we can get that data through search engine optimization and pay-per-click. We can look at competitor activities. We can also need to watch trends and market research. If you'll also look in your book, some other tools that might be available to you is you have the Google Analytics, you have Google AdWords, Google AdSense. You can also, there are specific companies that are out there that also help you. Companies that help you with trends and market research might be the Flickr site or the Delicious site. And these are constantly changing, so you'd have to always go out there and monitor what are the sites that are helping me with each one of these areas that you see on your screen here. And so hopefully you've learned something about e-marketing this semester and the steps you go through and think about. And so that's what we've been talking about all semester long, and I hope you find that you can apply some of what you've heard in this class to your other classes and to your own businesses and a career path in the future. And so that ends this chapter.